Welcome back to BNC Live. Well, dealing with the ongoing pandemic and other life stressors can take a toll on many, making it even more difficult to navigate day to day. So September is National Suicide Prevention Month. Many people want to know that they are not alone and they have resources in their communities to help them. Jen Sullivan takes a look at the mental health toll COVID-19 is having on young people.
Already, their bodies are battling nerves, hormones, and where they fit in their communities. Add a global pandemic and everything gets magnified, creating a huge impact on their mental health. According to a study published in JAMA Pediatrics, twice as many kids and teens experienced symptoms of anxiety and depression during the COVID-19 pandemic than those that had pre-pandemic. Globally, 1 in 4 were depressed, while 1 in 5 were dealing with elevated levels of anxiety. And it's no wonder. Schools closed and remote learning became the norm. Opportunities to meet up with peers or supportive adults outside the home dwindled. Extracurricular activities and hobbies all but stopped. Not to mention the constantly changing conditions and disruption to routine. According to child clinical psychologist Jenna Glover, that chronic stress can lead to feeling hopeless, and that can lead to thoughts of suicide. But there is a way to turn things around and help kids and teens cope in a healthier way. Talk to your kids. Keep as regular routine as you can. Have them in school, if it's safe. Monitor their sleeping and eating habits and their mood. And remember to seek help from a mental health professional if necessary.
All those are very important things. Our mental health and wellness expert, Jane Marks, is with me now to talk about National Suicide Prevention Awareness. Jane, good afternoon. And Jane, obviously you and I talk about this all the time. People are dealing with so much, a lot of weight on their shoulders right now. So during the height of the pandemic, studies show that globally 1 in 4 people were depressed and 20% are dealing with high levels of anxiety. What are some steps people can actually take to cope during this difficult time?
Well, when you're experiencing extreme anxiety, the first thing you might need to be mindful of course, is paying attention to your body and how you're doing. Are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Are you taking time to exercise? Those are keys in managing anxiety. But if it's more than that, you probably need to make sure that at least you have what I would call a go-to person that you can talk to about what you're experiencing. Because sometimes you can't really trust your own judgment. So it's important that you can have somebody in your life who at least knows where you are now, knows where you've been. So if there's a significant change, this helps with anxiety management. So to have a supportive person or a supportive group around you are just some of the few steps that you can take.
And sometimes people can't identify what folks are going through. They're looking at them, but they can't really see through what they're going through. What are some of the warning signs of suicide so people can know if somebody is having a tough time and it could be leading to that?
Well, you pay attention to what's, what you're seeing. I think a lot of times, suppose a person has had a significant loss in their life, then you know that they're at risk. Or alternatively, suppose you know that they've had suicide in the family. And then you couple that with, let's say, economic disparity, or they've lost their job and all those things. And then all of a sudden you start to see things like them giving their things away, or having messages or saying things like, life is not worth living, or, we've even seen totally different changes in their personality, mood swings. You see all sorts of signs, or them saying, you know what? I've been considering buying a gun. Now this is, that's unusual talk. Or you see an increase in substances. All of these things are big indicators that suicide may be on the horizon.
Yeah, and I actually took this very personally, Jane, because I had 2 friends that actually committed suicide, and sometimes for some people it's a quick decision and they don't even, you don't see it coming. And studies have shown, suicide rather was an ongoing crisis for Black and brown communities long before the pandemic. Are minority communities getting more access to mental health services?
They are at this point, and the reason is this, is that community leaders and faith and spiritual leaders are taking action. And one of the things I have found, particularly in a lot of communities here in the South, is that they're putting mental health units directly into the classrooms and directly into schools so that kids have resources, and they're putting language on it. And that's what's going to make a difference. Now, in terms of having insurance and access, that's historically been a difficulty for communities of color. And believe it or not, the biggest group of people who are at risk are Native Americans. We're seeing just huge numbers as far as suicidal ideation and suicidal completion.
And so we have been in a global pandemic, you know, everybody has felt it for a year and a half now. How can social isolation and economic stress have an impact on people's mental health? And just kind of being by yourself.
Right. It has a huge impact on you know, anxiety and stress, because first of all, if economically you don't have a job, you know, your focus is, how am I going to pay the utility bill? You're not strategizing about your mental health. All you're concerned is, you know, am I going to be able to feed my family? Am I going to be able to make sure that everybody's taken care of? Will we have the lights on? Those are the kinds of concerns. So you can't problem solve. You can't strategically know what's going on with you. So, and then you couple that with isolation. There's no one saying to you, you're going to be okay, things are going to get better. You don't have the kinds of supports that you need. So it's a big one. And so for the month of September, it's critical that we pay attention to suicide and its impact on communities in general.
Certainly. And the pandemic has caused constant changes to our routines. Kids and teens can experience a lot of stress and anxiety. How can parents actually help their children and teens cope in a healthier way?
Well, you know, they have to be there. Certainly, that's what's important. And you have to spend quality time with your teens. And I think, you know, sometimes during these, particularly the anxiety is high, you might want to say, listen, it's time for a tech break, you know, and most importantly, you got to get physical. Teens, by and large, need to have that physical activity. And they also need that sense of belonging and engagement. So to the extent that parents can look for these things, you know, that's a critical, healthy thing that they can do at this point. Because a lot of times parents don't know what to do. They want to say, I'm going to fix it for you, or here's a solution, or we're going to get you some medication, or, you know, we're going to get you to a therapist. Well, I can't tell you. I've been working with teens for over 50 years. Yeah. First of all, I ask the question, who made the referral? Was this your idea, or was it your parents? I can tell you routinely they'll say it was their parents. And so I have to get them to shift so that they become engaged in the process. So for teens, I think first of all, for parents, it's recognition that there's been such a change in your child's functioning that you need to do something.
Yeah. I mean, I know sometimes it's definitely hard to get them to open up, but more importantly, Jane, how can our viewers learn about mental health organizations in their local areas? You
know, generally most communities have local mental health facilities, and if you can't get to it that way, then call your local city commission or your county commission, because they know where the resources are. And sometimes, you know, you don't think of those as being resources, but they're there. Or call the local hospitals. Most hospitals can give you that information immediately.
Yeah. Well, we all know it is so important to keep our mental health in check. Jane Marks, our mental health and wellness expert. Jane, thank you.